Welcome back to Market on Close. Let's do some trading here on the big subject of the day, which is the Bitcoin takeover. Beating gold right now. Scott Bauer is joining us, CEO of Prosper Trading Academy. So Scott, I mean, this is like only once in a few times we've seen moves like this for BTC in terms of price level, and it's doing it apparently without gold taking part. So we've got a really interesting dynamic here. How do you view this as a trader? What's the opportunity?
So we've been talking about that the last several weeks, Oliver, the kind of, disparity, if you will, between Bitcoin and gold. And this is almost as parabolic a move as we saw back in 2017. There's a few reasons that this has happened over the last few weeks, for sure, and especially over just the last couple days. So number one, you've had all this positive news about Bitcoin actually being used in the real world, PayPal and other places, and then you get Citigroup coming out and say this thing's going to 300,000 in 2021. I mean, so there's some bite to that, if you will. However, over the last couple weeks during the month of November, there's some really big whales out there. The whales are, the big fish out there, the big guys that are tossing this thing around that have been accumulating Bitcoin. So there is less and less on the sell side because of the major demand of these big whales picking this up. So what we've seen over the last week is Bitcoin market cap has jumped from like 298 billion to 329 billion on really large volume. Today, in fact, CME futures are over 10,000 contracts. That's a really, really busy day. And if you look now at a very short timeline, you're going to see some support almost right where we're trading right now, right around like 17.7. There definitely is some resistance, and I can tell you that if this thing breaks, 18 and above, there's going to be a massive amount of selling ahead of that 20,000 point that we hit 3 years ago. But right now, it's all systems go here. It's a lot of a FOMO trade, but the big fish out there are accumulating Bitcoin.
So Scott, and I think that explanation goes with our conversation with Nick Carter at the top of the show. It seems like to some degree it's different, but not that different. It's different in that there's a different universe of people buying this thing, but it seems like they're buying it generally for the same purpose, right? They want to make money on it. Maybe they want to hold it for this potential stored value down the road. But right now, as far as the investors, the kind of traditional investors that I've spoken with that are dabbling in it, it's about yield because they can't get yield anywhere else. So how much do you think we need to see that move above the previous high to feel safe on this? Or is the fact that we were able to even get back to this level, which many thought impossible, enough to suggest you want to be in this momentum to the upside right now?
I think the Bitcoin longs, the bulls out there, actually want to see this thing consolidate right here, not spike up to that 20,000 and then, have a violent sell-off or anything. I think what they want to see is some really continued heavy volume and consolidation up here, because that would just reinforce with the price activity that we have seen. The last thing they want to see are the major gyrations in terms of long term. Obviously, if they're in for just a short pop, get in, get out, that's one thing. But the longer term whales that are in this for the long run would love to see high volume here and just really establish itself with a lot of sideways action here. I'll be honest with you, and that's kind of what we're seeing here. And the catalyst, like you said though, Oliver, might be a chase for yield. It could be. But it's a lot different now than it was 3 years ago, because 3 years ago, Bitcoin was, all right, flip a coin, no pun intended. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? The fact that over the last several months, there has been application that we have seen, application in the real world has legitimized, what you see here. And that is a big reason why you've seen people piling into this trade.
Scott, in the meantime, just real quick, we're already over time on gold. This thing just can't get a rally. It seems like at least next to BTC, it's now disconnected.
There is definitely a disconnect, and I think, though, you can't get a rally, but the reason it's not selling off is because I think there's a lot of hope still for a stimulus. And if there's more stimulus, whether it's in 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, if it's still out there, that's really, getting some undercurrent here to the price of gold.
Okay. All right. We got to run. Scott, thanks for the thoughts. Looking at some of the technicals here on BTC. Gold hanging out right where it's been for much of the last couple of weeks at 1880.